The right to see that the people get a fair share of the wealth which they help to produce. If we are prepared to work and to struggle and to organize for these things, this country will go forward.
And I came to a country where my father and I and my family found peace and tolerance and decency. And I tell you that a country and a people that can give that must be kept strong, must be kept just, and must be kept united.
We need a government that says the concerns of families of loggers and nurses, farmers, fishermen, are just as important as the concerns of bankers. Now is the time for such a change, one made with confidence and determination.
But we do have the openness and willingness to work with all Canadians, to find the answers, and to make them work. We can build a truly cooperative society that operates in the interests of all Canadians.
A New Democrat campaign is simply about people talking to people, in the grocery store, on the telephone, in our workplace. It's also about teamwork, and we need a strong team to meet the goals of a campaign.
The three main objectives of every NDP campaign are communication, identification, and transportation.
I think we should add one more, Bob. I think fundraising is also a critical part of NDP campaigns.
That's true. However, communicating our message is the central objective of every NDP campaign, whether it's the leader, the candidate, the materials we distribute, the signs we put up, or the advertising that we buy. All of these things are geared to persuade the voters to support our candidates.
Identification is the process of keeping track of every single person who says, yes, I'm going to vote New Democrat on Election Day. We identify voters through our foot canvass, through our phone canvass, and just through our everyday contacts during the campaign.
Transportation is the outcome of all of this organizational activity. What it means is that we want to give the opportunity to every identified supporter of the New Democrats to cast their ballot on behalf of our candidate.
All campaigns are building campaigns, whether the goal is to win or to build for the future. But it's important to have your goal clearly in mind so that you can put together a realistic plan.
But don't forget, you must test your objectives periodically during the campaign to make sure that they are still valid.
Remember, no two campaigns are alike, so be flexible. Take into consideration the political environment, the history, the resources of the riding, and think about what must be done before determining the political strategy.
You've got to get a handle on your riding. You've got to get the political background and a demographic breakdown.
Well, you know, I'm running for the NDP, okay. And I hope you support me.
Yeah. Build networks. Get to know the organizations in your community, labor organizations, labor groups, ethnic and multicultural communities, any group that may feel some affinity to your campaign. Personal networks are key.
That's true. I can remember a campaign where our candidate refused to pass on the names and addresses and telephone numbers of his friends and colleagues. Eventually, we were able to convince him that it was important. And the response from those people was very, very positive. And they made up the strength of the momentum we built near the end of the campaign.
Experienced campaign workers can help you put together a profile of your riding. They'll talk to you about the history of campaigns. Go to your municipal library to find out the statistics from last campaigns and also to research issues that may be important in this coming election. The candidate is the central and most effective messenger in the campaign. Get to know strengths and weaknesses. Exploit strengths, hide weaknesses.
As an example, a candidate who's very good in front of a crowd, you should try and highlight that skill or ability by making sure they get the opportunity to speak to crowds as often as possible. On the other hand, if someone is shy and reticent in front of crowds, then you try and highlight their strength in terms of getting them together with small groups or getting them to work one-on-one with people. As you begin to work on these tasks during the pre-election period, your campaign team will begin to identify problems. And their challenge will be to find creative solutions to these problems.
Okay, folks, we should get going, folks. E-Day's in 48 days. The clock's ticking. There's two things I want to come out of this meeting with. First of all, a good sense of what we've done so far. And secondly, and more importantly, exactly what we have to do first. Beverly, let's start with committee rooms. Where are we at?
Okay, I've looked around. I've got a lead on a place on Main Street, which I think is really good.
A lot of Main isn't in the riding. Some of us do for ourselves.
No, this is fine. It's main corner of Elm, 244 Main Street. It's got a parking lot nearby. It's got bus stops. It's got exposure. It's wheelchair accessible.
Good.
It's got a basement for storage if we want to put signs down there. Got lots of outlets. It's got a dedicated fax machine in there already.
Is there a back door so that we have someplace to send the smokers?
Yep, it's got a back door that goes out into the parking lot, so that's no problem.
What about space for childcare in the phone bank?
Well, the office is flexible enough, so if we wanted to put up wall dividers, we could, or room dividers. We could do childcare in there. Ms. Francis has offered to do childcare again this year like she has in past campaigns, so I think we'll be okay there.
What about computers, if we decide to bring computers in?
I think computers are really great. They can do a lot for us, but only if we're ready. And the campaign started
We'll
and we're
take
not
over
ready.
the campaign. Okie doke.
Sounds great. How much does it cost?
Okay, I've looked around. The rates are competitive. It's going to cost us, though, about 10% more than last campaign.
Who are we going to fill the committee rooms with? Where are we at in terms of volunteers?
There's two ideas in terms of recruiting. First is if you know somebody who can help staff the office or help with fundraising or something, grab them. Don't wait. Second thing is we're going to collect up any and all names that we can of people who've worked on previous campaigns, the check marks, the people who supported us in previous elections, the NDP membership, as well as groups that have identified with the party because of the work we've done on issues that mean a lot to them, like women's groups, environmentalists, visible minorities, groups like that. We're going to collect up all the names we can, put them on a central list, and start phoning to all of those people. Not asking them to do something over the phone, just asking them to come down to our committee room. And what we'll do is get them, once they're there, we'll have someone like Jackie, if you're doing the canvas organizing again, to talk to them briefly about what it means to be to help out with the canvas, and see the people who are interested in doing that. We'll pass them over to you. Then we'll take the others who are left over and see what's our next priority. Is it phoning? Is it doing drops? Is it signs, office work? So we can have those people come and make a pitch, and make sure that folks end up in a job that they're suited for that way. I don't know if I've forgotten any groups there.
Daniel, we shouldn't forget to include the union locals as well.
Good point. Don't want to miss out on those folks. And can anybody think of any other groups that I may have left out?
Well, you know, Daniel, there's a group of people that I know that work in community centers, and they've got a great network. And also some of the people that I work with in the office that have never worked on NDP campaigns, and they don't know much about political campaigns. They're very supportive. If there's some way you could train them.
We'll make sure that everybody that comes into these group sessions is made to feel welcome, that they find something that they can do, that they're comfortable with, and they understand how it fits into the overall campaign.
Let's move on to identifying the vote. We've already agreed that the phone canvass is going to be our central method of voter contact during this campaign. Jackie, where are we in terms of our overall voter contact strategy?
Well, as you know, we sat down and we went over the riding poll by poll. And what we did in that was we were looking at those areas that we feel are our priority areas. We were also looking at how we were going to reach the people in those polls. And there's basically going to be three ways we're going to do that. As Bruce mentioned, the basic tool in this campaign is going to be the phone canvass. The good thing about the phone canvass is that you can reach people quickly, and you can reach those that you cannot reach by foot, those in the northern areas, the hard areas to reach, the seniors' buildings. But in those areas that we really want to put a push on, in those swing polls, in the areas where we want to convince undecided voters, we're going to go with a foot canvass. Now, along with that foot canvass...
I think one thing we should be really careful about is who's going to be doing the foot canvass, who's going to be doing the phone canvass. Last campaign I was in, we had somebody came in, we didn't know them, they wanted to volunteer, and we were really pushing the foot canvass for everyone, so we said, can you go out, can you knock on doors? And wasn't really keen to do it, but we gave him a kit, we convinced him, and a couple days later we started getting phone calls that there was this drunken, ranting New Democrat on the doorstep. And so we had to pull him off the streets pretty quickly. So So I think that the point is that when anyone comes in the committee rooms and they're going to be doing some canvassing, some voter contact, they start on the phones, the central part of our campaign. And then as we look at our priority polls, as the campaign goes on, we can take some of those people, train them for the door-to-door canvass, and ship them out with a kit.
That's right. That the phone canvass will work with the foot canvass when the foot canvass isn't working well. Also, too, another part of the phone canvass will be the direct mail. And those are the people we want to, the targeted groups that we want to reach.
Jackie, just to carry on your direct mail program, I'm wondering about thank you letters to our sign locations, people who are donating to the campaign. How are you going to fit that in?
That's a good point. Paul and I need to work that out, how we're going to get those letters in, say, a turnaround of 3 days, get the letters out to the donors. Plus, a quick way of getting letters out or mail out is to send it out with the sign crew. Marion, I have some letters to potential workers that I'd like you to sign.
That's great. Maybe that's something I could be doing now if you have them handy, and I can sign them before the end of the meeting.
Mm-hmm. I think, in fact, now's a really good time to jump into the candidate schedule. I have a draft here of 29 days of the campaign, which outlines a number of activities for the candidate. I'll go over the first few. On Tuesday, we have the candidate meeting with the Labour Council, and that'll be early in the day, so I'll have time for a good bit of canvassing after that. Wednesday, we have our first all-candidates meeting at the Women's Bookstore, and canvassing on Thursday and Friday, rounding out the canvassing on Friday with canvassing with a local councillor.
I don't know if I want to canvass with the local councillor on Friday night. It seems to me that's not a good time.
This councillor locally has a really good profile. Maybe what we can do is you and I can, after this meeting, sit down and talk a bit more in depth about the about your schedule and work anything out then.
Very good.
Monday is our first press conference. Eileen, where are we with that?
Actually, we're doing really well, Bruce. We've got everything under control. It's all well organized. We've contacted the media. We're going to have a good turnout. We've got the location. The press statement has been drafted, and I think we're ready to go. This is the first press conference, actually, in a series of weekly press conferences. We're going to be targeting a local issue that we will be talking about, that the candidate will be talking about. And I'd like to actually get together with the candidate to discuss some of the local issues that I've identified, tie them in with the national themes.
Yeah, because I'm picking up issues at the door, and one of the things that really is coming across strongly is the building of an incinerator in the riding. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to tie that into the national theme somehow, but it counts right here in this riding, and we've got to talk about it.
Oh, actually, that's perfect, because the theme for the first week is the environment, and that would tie in extremely well.
Okay, on that same theme in terms of advertising, I'm wondering where we're...
Bruce, if you'd excuse me, and don't need me anymore, Marika is here now, and we're supposed to go out canvassing. Is that okay?
Good stuff. Sounds like the perfect solution.
Well, this sounds really good, so things are moving along. I know you people are all going to vote for me, but now we're going out to get everybody else to vote for us.
Thanks, Marion. Okay, Eileen, our advertising strategy, where are we so far?
Well, I think we're in a good position, Bruce. We have our ad campaign set already. We have a budget that's already been worked out. And Paul, I'm not sure that you're going to agree to that part of it. It's slightly more expensive than the last campaign. We're going to begin by buying space on E-28 on local radio stations, and those radio stations that are targeted to our vote. And we're going to focus on community papers and on ethnic papers here in the riding as well. It makes more sense to do that than to advertise in the major dailies or to advertise on the television. It's no bang for your buck. And the main theme of our advertising is going to be tying in the local issues with the national themes of the campaign.
While we're talking about publicity, Eileen, I know you've been handling signs as well. We don't have a sign chair yet. We should have one within a day or two. How are we coming in terms of our sign strategy?
Well, we don't have a sign chair, but we have a sign crew, and they're putting up 200 signs even as we speak now that the writ's been dropped. So that's great. The sign strategy is good. It's consistent with the overall campaign strategy. We're going to start strong, build some momentum. We're going to focus on the high traffic areas and get some big signs up in the next few days. And we're going to put some billboards up, not before 28 days before the end of the campaign, but we'll get those up as well. That's good. Have you thought about the Chinese and Italian communities?
Oh yeah, they're high priorities, and the swing poles in the riding are high priorities too. So
Okay.
we've got people targeted, ready to go there. And oh, I'm not going to let what happened the last campaign happen again. We've got some good record-keeping procedures set up this time. We're going to make sure that we have all our records in place and ready to be used next time.
Good for you.
Good.
That's great. Thanks, Eileen. You've taken on a lot this campaign. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Great. Now we've decided how we're going to spend all of our money. Let's figure out where we're going to get it from. Paul, let's talk
Good
about
idea. You guys seem to have spent all the money. So one thing is we're going to have to stick to the budget. It's going to be a little tight, I would imagine. We're going to have to build in a little bit of a cushion for the end, so we have to pace how we spend this money. But we have a little bit of money in the bank. We have a line of credit established with the credit union. We have an account open for office supplies. Petty cash shouldn't be a problem. And I just should emphasize this point, nobody should be spending any money without running it past me first, because we have all of the legalities to deal with at the end of the campaign. And we have to integrate the fundraising right into the campaign, because otherwise we're just not going to raise that amount of money. We're going to hit the past donors this week. We're going to hit the sign locations next week, and then we're going to fold in all of the supporters that we drag in from the canvas into the fundraising in the coming weeks. We're also going to hit the candidates' personal list throughout the campaign. The objective here is to raise all of the money we need by Election Day, because we can't come out of this with a debt.
And one of our biggest expenditures is going to be staffing. Just before the meeting, I got off the phone, and we're not going to be getting anybody from the outside.
Not good.
We have to find all of the campaign staff locally. So what we have to start doing really quickly is finding out who's available now, who can we book off work, and next week's just too late for this. So the next meeting, we're going to have to make sure everybody comes back with some suggestions. Maria has already agreed to take the last 2 weeks off work to coordinate our election day.
Oh, good.
Yep. And, well, Maria, what are you going to recommend? What sort of e-day system are you thinking of?
Well, I've been looking at the options we have available, which is basically zone and central. And I think for this riding, our best bet is to go with the zone system. So I'm going to be setting up a system with Daniel and then talking again to Jackie. Anybody who works, who canvasses, phone, doesn't matter, should be committed, asked and committed to work on Election Day. Also, anyone who says no, they can't help, they still should get asked, even if it's only for a couple of hours. And I'm very serious. We're going to need a lot of workers. The other thing I'd like to try this time is to do a mini E-Day for the advanced poll. We've fallen down on that in the past. I think it's a missed opportunity, specifically some of the ethnic communities, the seniors' homes. And it'll also be a very good dry run. The other thing is anyone who works on Election Day, anyone who's working in the campaign, votes in the advance. Right. I'm not taking any chances. Yeah. Every vote counts.
Thanks, Maria. I think one thing we can do is we can turn the fact that all of the staff of the campaign are going to be local to our advantage. It can be a local campaign. It'll be a local victory. In order to do that, we're going to have to all work together. The lines of communication are going to have to be open between each and every one of us. Any problem, before it becomes a river, before it becomes fatal to the campaign, bring it to my attention, raise it, and let's deal with it and move on. Thanks in advance, and we are going to win this one. We're going to have to pace ourselves. There's no point in burning out in the first week of the campaign and being useless for the rest of the campaign. And more than anything, let's have fun and let's win. All right, and let's make sure the volunteers have fun too.
Right on.
Okay.
Keeping track of all of the important information in a campaign is a challenge. Be sure that at the beginning of the campaign you've worked out how you're going to do this. You need to be sure that everyone who's active in your campaign understands the system for paper flow that's in place.
I remember one campaign where a woman called in to complain on a Friday night looking for somebody who was in charge. And it turned out that she was absolutely livid. We had been phoning her house Monday night to ask if her husband would take a sign, Tuesday to ask if he'd help out in the campaign, Wednesday to see if he'd make a financial donation, and she was ticked right off at this point because she just put the guy on the ground Sunday. He'd been buried. And here we are calling and harassing. And she'd gone from being upset to being downright angry. And the mistake there is that everybody who touched the phone book doing the phoning during the campaign didn't realize what was going to happen to the forms after them or where they had come from initially. So everybody would freak out and move on from there, forgetting to make a mark on the sheet.
One of the basic elements to good record keeping is good training. If all of the people in the campaign understand their jobs and are taught how to do their jobs effectively, your records will be far more accurate and, in the end, much more useful.
There was a canvass organizer who wasn't pacing himself properly. He'd stay later after the campaign office closed and chat to people. He wasn't eating the proper food that he should. Instead of having a good supper, he was having a bag of chips and a bottle of Pepsi. And basically what happened to this person at E-7, he shut down. He wasn't able to function. He wasn't able to make the decisions that were being demanded of him. So 2 other people had to sort of go to the rescue and take over that person's kits and make the decisions, what polls to go in, what marks to go after. So it showed that we were able to work well as a team. Unfortunately, what we should have done way back at the beginning was seeing the signs that this person was burning out, that they weren't pacing themselves properly, that they weren't eating well, they weren't getting the sleep they should have. And it's really important to do that because you've got a last right to E day, and people are depending on you.
Our whole campaign has been geared to persuading, identifying, and getting the vote out on Election Day.
And it's important that the whole campaign team is well schooled in the Election Day approach if we're to get every new Democrat supporter to the polls on Election Day.
Not only that, each member of the team must work harder than ever to ensure that we have the large number of workers necessary to put together an effective Election Day organization.
The organizing must start early. Organizing must be done in detail if it's going to be effective.
There are a number of resources available to all ridings through federal office.
The role of the national office of the party begins almost from the point that the results are known from the previous election. Once the election debt is paid off, the party rather focuses its attention almost exclusively on the next election. And it's in constant contact with the ridings in terms of policy development, in terms of the elaboration of things such as the affirmative action guidelines, and also in terms of ordinary communication. Once the election is called, the national office also provides a wealth of material and advice to ridings for the effective execution of a campaign. The advice ranges from information on the application of electoral rules to basic organizational questions to a whole host of communications questions.
So if you're in an area that is diverse in terms of race and ethnicity, that should be reflected in the character of the campaign. And so it means that you're going to have to be a bit aggressive in searching out the people who are supporters of the party, if not members of the party, to convince them in a campaign that they should be involved because there's going to be a result that is going to be in their interests.
A riding should expect, once a decision has been taken by the Strategy and Election Planning Committee that the tour will visit, that they will be given as much notice as possible, lead time as possible, and that someone from the Leaders Tour will contact them and discuss the events that might take place with their local candidate in the campaign. And then an advance person will come a couple of days earlier to the local campaign to assist with the logistical and technical requirements.
We've covered a lot of ground about campaign organizing. In my experience, campaigns that run into problems are those that are either not prepared or try to do things they simply are not able to do.
That's true, but if you follow the steps that we've covered, you can have an effective campaign, you can probably learn a lot, and you'll have fun too.
Keep reminding yourself how important your volunteers are to the campaign and how grateful you are. If every time you go to talk to them, one of your volunteers, that gratitude shows through, it will really pay off.
Plan carefully, anticipate problems, and deal with things as they arise.
The best advice I can give a campaign is don't overspend.
It's important that your campaign delivers a strong, clear, consistent message.
It becomes really easy when you're working with an awful lot of people with one goal in mind, and that is to win an election.
You got to respect each other. You got to be able to work with each other.